It was a storm that changed lives forever. We're talking about Hurricane Andrew in 1992, a Category 5 hurricane, maximum sustained winds of 165 miles per hour, made landfall in South Florida. It was a wake-up call to how vulnerable we all are to nature. Now, more than 30 years later, the Home Depot premieres a documentary called Hope Builds, and it's a behind-the-scenes look at how natural disasters really take place, how we need to come together, and what it takes to rebuild. So joining us from the Home Depot to discuss this new documentary is Briar Waterman, Senior Director, Creative Design and Home Improvement Expert Joe Cobb. Welcome to the show. Let's start with Briar. Tell us a little bit about what inspired this documentary.
It was inspired by Home Depot's response to Hurricane Andrew and really how we stepped up at that time of need for that community and really put in place a disaster response, throughout the years. We interviewed over 70 associates throughout America to find out sort of how we'd sort of put that in place, and then we carried it out through the years.
And Briar, weather emergencies are increasing every year, it seems. What does the film reveal about disaster preparedness since Andrew? Have we come a long way?
Yeah, we've come a long way, but preparedness is really, you have to be prepared and you have to heed the preparations as you know that storms are coming, things like hurricanes and other things like that. But when it comes to wildfires and freezes and tornadoes, really, you have to take the time to be prepared ahead of time. And so things like emergency preparedness kits are really critical to have.
Yes, I understand that for sure. Now, what is the big takeaway folks need to get from this documentary?
The big takeaway is that even in those times of devastation, there is hope. There are people within the community, including Home Depot, who are there to support in those times of needs and also committed to rebuilding those communities.
And let's get Joe involved here. Joe, hey, what are a few things we should have in a disaster response kit at home? Maybe some of the newer items that have been added over the last few years.
Yeah, so I think everybody knows that you need to have flashlights, right? But make sure you have enough flashlights for every single member of your family. You want to make sure that you have emergency radios, first aid kits, extra bottles of water and food, as well as some tie-down straps and some tarps in case the roof is damaged. And then a couple other things too. Maybe you have small children, so a few items for them to kind of keep them calm. And if you've got pets, extra pet food always helps out. And then, of course, the all-important duct tape.
Yeah, we need duct tape for everything, it seems, for sure. And hey, Joe, if we hear a storm's coming, I always say heed the warning. We've got to heed the warning. So what's the best way to protect our home both inside and out?
So especially when we're looking at things like hurricanes, right? You want to make sure any small objects outside the home are brought in. Maybe have a larger item that can't be brought inside. Make sure it is tied down. It's not always the wind, it's what's in the wind that does a lot of damage. And then if you've got flooding, you want to make sure that anything outside, like your HVAC unit or a generator, it is at least 1 foot above the ground to keep it operational.
Yeah, good points. Now, Joe, this is a big topic here on the First Coast, we call it here. Generators, okay? It's crucial keeping that power on after a storm. What are your 2 top safety tips when it comes to generators?
Generators are a great tool as long as they're used properly. And that means never operate them inside, and that includes a garage. You want them at least 20 feet away from your home with that exhaust facing away from the home. And then make sure that you have the proper extension cord. You want something that's at least a 14 gauge. That way it'll power some small appliances or maybe a window unit as well.
Very good. And Joe, where can our viewers or listeners get more information?
So if you want to watch that wonderful documentary or see any of these lists, go to homedepot.com/Hope Builds.
Thank you both so much. And of course, head to our website for another look at this segment, firstcoastliving.net.